Shalom Aleichem, and welcome to chapter 2, where we're going to be looking at Hebrew vowels. And this chapter is very important to learning how to read Hebrew. So grab a pen and a book and take down some notes. So we move on to review what we've looked at so far in chapter 1. We're looking at the Hebrew alphabet, and we said that when you're writing in Hebrew, you write from right to left. And when you're reading Hebrew, you read from right to left. That is the complete opposite of English. In English, you write from left to right. But in Hebrew, you're writing from right to left. That is the most important point. And when we're looking at the alphabet, we said that the alphabet has only 22 letters. And we said that there are no capital letters as in the English alphabet or the Greek alphabet. So these are some of the important points in our previous chapter. So here is the alphabet that we looked at. We're looking at the Hebrew consonants, the Hebrew letters, and we saw how to write them and how to read them, how to pronounce them. So let me just go through some of the important points. Again, we said that when you are reading Hebrew, you read Hebrew from right to left. And even when you're writing Hebrew, you write Hebrew from right to left. As we looked at the alphabet, we said that there are similar letters, the ones that we call lookalikes. They are letters that look alike, but they make different sounds. And I want you to go through and make sure that you don't confuse those letters. We also looked at Lamed, and we said that Lamed, when you're looking at the Hebrew alphabet, Lamed is the only letter that is going above the line when you're writing it. And we said that Kof is the only letter that is going below the line when you're writing it. So we have those two letters, Lamed going above the line and Kof going slightly below the line. Also, we say that Yod is the smallest letter on the Hebrew alphabet. And we went on to look at the Begat Kefat letters, and we said that the Begat Kefat letters are letters that receive the dot that is called Dagesh. And these letters that receive the Dagesh, we said you have Bet, we have Gimel, we have Dalet, we have Kaf, we have Pe, and we have Tau. So these 6 letters receive a dot, and when you see a dot inside the 6 letters, you're going to pronounce them with a hard sound. For example, Bet, when Bet is having a dot inside it, you're going to read it as B instead of as V. But when Bet has no dot inside, you're going to read it as V. So that dagesh, that dot, affects pronunciation. When it's present, it gives that hard sound, and when it's not present, it gives that soft sound. Another example on the Begat Kefat letters that I gave is Pei. When Pei is having a dot, the pronunciation will be Pei, as in P. But when Pei is not having the dot, the pronunciation is going to be F sound. It's going to be Fe, not Pe. So that is the importance of the dagesh. When it's present, it gives that hard sound. When it's not present, it's going to give that soft sound. So pay attention to the Begat Kefat letters when they're having a dot and when they're not having a dot. We also looked at the Sofit letters. Sofit letters are simply the final forms of some words. And we said that among the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, 5 have final forms, or 5 have 2 ways of writing them. The first form, or the normal form, is the one that you use when you're beginning a word, and the final forms that are called Sofit forms or Sofit letters are those that you use when you're ending a word. And these 5 letters that have 2 ways of writing them, we have Kaf, we have Mem, we have Nun, we have Pe, and we have Sade. And I can't stress how much this is very important to learning Hebrew. By now, you need to know how Kaf is written at the end of the word, how Mem is written at the end of the word, how Nun is written at the end of the word, how Pe is written at the end of the word, and how Sade is written at the end of the word. So on top there you have regular forms, which are normal forms that you're going to find when you're beginning a word or anywhere else on the word, but not at the end. And at the end, you're going to use the final forms, the Sofit forms. These are the ones that you're going to see at the end of the word. So these are called Sofit forms or Sofit letters or final forms. And again, there are 5 letters that are final forms, and these need you to know them. That is very important for you to know them, especially in this chapter. So go through them until you know them. So here's what we're going to look at in this chapter. We're going to look at how to write Hebrew vowels. I'm going to introduce you to the vowel system in Hebrew and how vowels work, how to pronounce the vowels, and how to write the vowels. That's what we're going to look at. And finally, we're going to look at how to read Hebrew words that are having vowels. Because in our previous chapter, we said we cannot pronounce the words minus the vowels. So the vowels are going to help us to pronounce the words. This will help us learn how to read and pronounce Biblical Hebrew. So let's get started. So far, by learning the Hebrew alphabet, you have only learned the consonants, and naturally the question arises, what about the vowels? As we mentioned in chapter 1, originally Hebrew was written without the vowels. Only consonants were written. And so the original Hebrew alphabet did not have vowels. Instead, readers who were fluent in the language inferred the appropriate vowel sounds from context. And this is similar to how English speakers can often understand the sentences even when they are not having vowels. Try to read this sentence here. This is a sentence in English. It has no vowels. Let's see if you can read it. Great, I'm sure you had less struggle. And here is how you read this sentence. This sentence should read, you can read this sentence without vowels. That is how you read that sentence. And already you can see that it's very easy to read a sentence without vowels, even in English. As long as you're familiar with the language, you can read sentences even when they are lacking vowels. In the same way, that was how Hebrew was written without vowels. The scribes who were used to reading Hebrew did not need vowels to read the Hebrew. So they had no vowels, but they were able to read the Hebrew. Here's an example of a sentence on how Hebrew was written without the vowels. But then the Hebrew text that we have today has vowels. So instead of you seeing this, you will see this sentence instead with vowels. These dots and features that you're seeing here are simply the vowels, which will help you read the Hebrew. So the question then is, where did the vowels come from? You see, the earliest forms of ancient Hebrew writing were consonants only, as I said. There were no vowels, there were no dots that you're seeing here, just bare consonants, just bare Hebrew letters, without vowels. But around 500 to 1000 AD, a group of Jewish scribes that are known as the Masoretes developed a system of marks that are called nikad to indicate the vowels. So vowels are called nikad. And this was done primarily for preserving pronunciation in the sacred text, so that the Hebrew text can be read and remembered even years later. And today our Hebrew Bible is called the Masoteric text. The name comes from the Hebrew word Masorah, which means tradition, because they added the vowels to preserve the tradition of pronunciation of the Bible, of the Hebrew. So since we want to learn how to pronounce the Hebrew, we need to learn these vowels, and this is what we want to look at in this chapter. How to pronounce the vowels, how to recognize the vowels, how to write the vowels. So let's look at the Hebrew vowels according to their classes or groups. Now, if you remember the vowels in English, you have A, E, I, O, U. And this is a similar pattern that you find in the Hebrew. That A, E, I, O, U is the same sound system that you find in Hebrew, as we are going to see. Here's what you'll see on the screen as we learn these vowels. Firstly, you're going to see the vowels on the middle there, on the center. And then their name, how the vowel is called in Hebrew, will be immediately under each vowel. These ones right here are the names for each vowel. Their sound guide, how to pronounce the vowel, will be just under the name of the letter. These ones here are sound guides, telling you on how the vowel is pronounced. And here you have the class that will show you whether the vowel belongs to A class vowel, A class vowel, or O class vowel. And these classes are going to be following the A, E, O classes, because Hebrew follows that pattern as well. Now, unlike English that has just short vowels and long vowels, Hebrew has three categories. There are long vowels, you have short vowels, and then there are half vowels, or as they are called sometimes, compound vowels. The long vowels are those that are pronounced with a long sound. The short vowels are those that are pronounced with a short sound, and the half vowels or the compound vowels are those that are pronounced even with a shorter sound. So we have long vowels, short vowels, and half vowels. Now, as we look at the A, E, O classes, some classes have only long vowels and short vowels. Some have long vowels, short vowels, and half vowels, as you'll be able to see. So let's begin with the A class vowels. Now, for us to know these vowels, we're going to use the Aleph letter. And the simple reason why we're using Aleph letter is because Aleph is a silent letter, and this will allow us to hear the vowel sound only. Notice also that Hebrew vowels are written either under the letter, and some are written on top of the letter, and some are written next to the letter. Now let's look at each one and see how to pronounce it. Let's look at the screen. On the long vowels, we have what we call kamets. Kamets. This one here is called kamets. And how you pronounce it? It's pronounced as ah. That is ah as in the word father. Father. That ah sound, that long ah sound is how you pronounce the vowel kamets. Kamets. On the short vowels, we have patach. Patach. It's not patak, it's patach. That last letter there on the name is kat, the one that we looked at when we were looking at the alphabet. And so you pronounce it as patach instead of patak. And patach has a sound, the shorter a sound, as in the word bat. So you have kamets, which is pronounced as a, and you have patach, which is pronounced as a. A, 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 a. Patach is simply written as just a line under the letter, just a stroke under the letter, and that's how you write patach. Next to it, we have half vowels, or what we call compound vowels. Now, compound vowels represent full sounds that have been abbreviated, or their sound hurried when you're pronouncing. And in Hebrew, there are about 3 compound vowels. Each is going to be comprising of 2 symbols that are placed together under a single consonant. As you can see there are those 2 vertical dots, and you have a single stroke. So that's why we call them compound vowels, because they're a mixture of vowels. They're a mixture of 2 vowels that are coming together to create one vowel. And in Hebrew grammar, compound vowels are simply known as hatef vowels. Why? Because their names simply start with hatef. Hatef this, hatef this, hatef this. For example, this one is called hatef patach. Hatef patach. Why is it called hatef patach? Because it's having those 2 dots and it's joining a patach. So you can see that there are 2 vowels there. You have 2 vertical dots and you have that stroke. That stroke there we have already seen on the short vowels. That is the patach. So compound vowels in Hebrew are called hatef vowels because they start with hatef and then they join with a vowel. And the hatef patach is also having a sound. Remember, we're talking about the a class vowels. And when we talk about the a class vowels, we're simply talking about the vowels that are having a sound. So this compound vowel here is having a sound, only that it's a shorter a, as in the word attack. Attack. That's a shorter a sound. So these are the a class vowels. So here is how the 3 are written. Here is how kamets is written. You have a line and a line that is coming down. And here's how patach is written. You have just a single stroke. And here is how hatef patach is written. You have 2 dots, 2 vertical dots, and you have 1 stroke that is joining. So on the first class, we have the A class vowels. The class is going to tell you how the vowels are pronounced, the kind of sound that the vowels are making. So these vowels here are making A sound, and so they're found on the A class vowels. So we have kamets, patach, and hatef patach. And then we have the E class vowels. On the E class vowels, we have 3. On the long vowels, we have tsere, tsere. Tsere is making long E sound. It's E as in the word they, they. And on the short vowels, we have sego, sego. Sego is making short E sound as in the word set. And on the half vowels, we have hatef sego, hatef sego. Hatef sego is making the shorter E sound. Remember, half vowels make the shorter sound. So hatef sego is making the shorter E sound as in the word empire, empire. And here's how the vowels are written. So you have sere, sego, and hatef sego. Let's move on. And then we have I class vowels. I-class vowels. On the I-class vowels, we have 2. On the long vowels, we have hirekiod, hirekiod. And hirekiod is making the long I sound, as in the word machine, machine. And on the short vowels, we have hirek, hirek. Hirek is making the short I sound, as in the word feet, feet. These are the vowels that we have on I-class vowels. Here's how they are written. So these are I-class vowels. Let's move on. And then we have O-class vowels. On the O-class vowels, we have 3. On the long one, we have 2 forms. This first one is called holem. The first form is called holem. That one that is having a dot on top is called holem, and it's making the long O sound. And sometimes it's written with holem and wow down. Holem and wow, the letter wow under. That also is making the long O sound. And so the first one is called holem. The second one is called holem wow. So this one is holem and this one is holem wow. I want to repeat. The first one is holem. It's called holem. The second one is called holem wow. And these two are making long O sound. When you see them, they're making long O sound. On the short vowels, we have kametz hatuf, kametz hatuf. Kametz hatuf is making short O sound, short O sound. And now you're wondering, is this not kametz that is making A sound? Because you saw this kind of a vowel on the A-class vowels. And you're wondering, is this not kametz? And you're right. The vowel is written the same, but it can be pronounced with A sound or O sound, depending on the context. I want to repeat, this vowel here can be pronounced with O sound or A sound, depending on the context. But most of the times, majority of the times when you find it, it's going to be pronounced with A sound, as you saw on the A-class vowels. But you should know that it's also found on the O-class vowels, making short O sound. And so context is going to guide you on which vowel you're looking at. But later on, we're going to see how to differentiate between kametz hatuf and kametz, between the one that is making A sound and the one that is making O sound. But for now, know that this vowel is found on 2 classes, the A-class vowel and the O-class vowel. On the O-class vowel is making O sound, and on the A-class vowel is making A sound. So here it's kametz hatuf, O sound. It's O as in the word go, the short O sound. And then we have the half vowel, and on the half vowels we have hatef kametz, hatef kametz. Hatef kametz is making the shorter O sound. It's O as in the word commit, commit. That shorter O sound is what hatef kametz makes. And so let me go through the vowels. On the long sounds, we have 2 forms. We have holem wow, which is making the long sound. And we have holem, which is also making the long O sound. And then we have kametz hatuf, making the short O sound. And then we have hatef kametz, making shorter O sound. So this is how the vowels are written. And so these are O-class vowels. Let's move on. And this brings us to the last class, which is U-class vowels. Those that are making U sound. And there are 2. On the long vowels, we have the first one, shurek. Shurek makes long U sound, as in the word food, food. That U sound is how shurek is pronounced. Food, U, U. And on the short vowels, we have kibbutz. Kibbutz. Kibbutz makes the short U sound, as in the word book. Book. That U is how kibbutz is pronounced. And so on the U class vowels, there are two. We have shurek and kibbutz. Shurek and kibbutz. And this is how they're written. So those are U class vowels, shurek and kibbutz. And then we have this one here. This one is kind of special because it's not belonging to any class. These two dots that you're seeing under the pay, the two dots are called shua. And shua is a special kind of a vowel. It's not found in the classes that we've looked at. It's standing alone. And when you see it, it makes the short A sound. A sound. So this one is a special one. It makes a short A sound. Now just a note here, sometimes it's pronounced and sometimes it's not pronounced. But later on we're going to see how this applies. But for now, know that this vowel here is a special one. It's called shua. And when you see it, it makes a short A sound. And this is how it's written. It's written as two dots under a letter. So it's going to be two dots under a letter. And that is called shua. Shua. And notice when you're writing it, it's written with just two vertical dots under a letter. Two vertical dots under a letter. The name for it is called shua. Shua. And this vowel is the one that is used to form the compound vowels. Remember, those two dots are the ones that are forming the compound shivas. They are the ones that are joining the patach to form the hatef patach. They are the ones that are joining the segor to form the hatef segor. They're the ones that are joining the kametz to form the hatef kametz. This is the vowel, the shua. And remember the sound? It makes the A sound, that half A sound. That's how you pronounce shua, that half A sound. Let's proceed. So let's look at the vowels again in one chart. You have the short vowels and you have the long vowels. And you have their classes. You have the A class vowels, you have the A class vowels, you have the E class vowels, you have the O class vowels, and you have the U class vowels. On the A class vowels, you have the kametz and you have the patach. You have the long A and you have the short A. On the A class vowels, you have the tsere and you have the segor. The tsere is long, you have that long A sound. And the segor is short, you have that A sound. On the E class vowels, you have the hirek yod, and hirek yod is long. It's that E sound, that long E sound. And on the short vowels, you have the hirek. So hirek is short. When you come down, you have the O class vowels, the ones that are making O sound. On the long vowels, there are two. You have the holem, and you have the holem wow. And both of these are making O sound. And on the short vowels, remember you have that confusing vowel, the kametz hatuf. It looks like a kametz, that one there, but it's actually a kametz hatuf. It's having the O sound. Kametz has A sound, kametz hatuf has O sound. For now, when you're looking at a kametz or a kametz hatuf, for now, just pronounce them as A sound, A. We'll look at how to differentiate these two in our next chapter. For now, when you're looking at these two, just pronounce it as A. In fact, even after we look at the examples, you find that the one that is more common is the A sound. It's the kametz that is forming A sound instead of the kametz hatuf, the O sound. So this one is more common than this one. Then we come to U class vowels. We have the shurek, with long U sound, U. And then we have the kibbutz, Kibbutz has a funny name, also a funny way of writing it, so I guess that is how you'll be able to tell it. Kibbutz, U sound, a short U, long U. Long O, short O. Long E, short E. Long E, short E. Long R, short R. Those are the 5 classes of vowels that we have. Then we also looked at the compound vowels, the half vowels, and these are the 3 half vowels. The first one on the screen, you have Hatef Segol, then you have Hatef Patach, then you have Hatef Kametz. And as you can see, there are a combination of Shiwa, the 2 dots, the 2 vertical dots are called Shiwa, and another vowel. And the names are as a result of this other vowel. For example, the first one is called Hatef Segol because it's joined with the Segol. The next one is called Hatef Patach because it's joined with the Patach. The next one is called Hatef Kametz because you're joining it with the Kametz. And that's why we call them compound vowels or half vowels because of the shorter sound that they're having. So we have the E sound, A sound, and O sound. Remember, this is called Hatef Kametz. It's belonging to the O class vowels. So when you're pronouncing it, you pronounce it as O, the shorter O sound. These are our 3 compound vowels that we have. Remember that there is a language learning gap. When you're learning a new language, the mind is trying to adjust to the new information. So be patient with yourself. Take some time, go through the work, go through the information, go through the notes, and as you are going through, it's going to be making sense. So for now, learn how to write the vowels and learn how to pronounce them. Learn their names and how the vowels are pronounced. And not only that, learn the long vowels and learn the short vowels. Know the difference between long vowels and short vowels. As we are proceeding, that information there is very important. Knowing the long vowels from the short vowels. But practice, 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 and things are going to be making sense. Now let's try out pronouncing some of the Hebrew words with the vowels. As you can see, the vowels are the ones that are highlighted, and then on top you have the consonant. So the consonant on top, the vowel under. And again, remember, I said that sometimes vowels are written under, sometimes vowels are written after the consonant, sometimes vowels are written on top of the consonant. So those are the 3 positions where vowels are written. But here are some rules on how to pronounce the vowels. Number 1, always pronounce the consonant first, then the vowel. So you start by pronouncing the consonant and then the vowel. Let's look at the first one here. On the first one you have the bet, and under there you have the kametz. That dot that you are seeing there is the dagesh. And if you remember, the function of that dagesh, the function of that dot is to help us to pronounce the letter as B sound instead of having V sound. If we remove that dagesh, if we remove that dot, the B, the bet is going to have a V sound. If we put that dagesh, if we put that dot, the bet is going to have a B sound instead of a V sound. So for example, here, this is going to be pronounced as ba, ba. Why? Because you have the bet making the B sound, and under you have the kametz having the A sound, A. So you have ba, ba. And this other one here is going to be ba, ba. Why? Because you have the bet and you have the patach. Patach is a shorter one. Kametz is a long A. Patach is a short A. So you have ba and you have ba. Ba and ba. And again, remember the importance of the dagesh. Without the dagesh, we will read the first one as va, va. And with the dagesh, it's going to be read as ba, ba. So the dagesh is going to influence how we read the begat kefat letters. You need to know the begat kefat letters. And you need to know how they are pronounced when they have a dagesh and when they don't have a dagesh. When they have a dot and when they don't have a dot. Let's move on. And then we have the A class vowel. Those that are making A sound. We have sere and we have sego. Remember, the highlighted ones are the vowels, and on top you have the consonant. The first one is going to be pronounced as. You can try it. Try to pronounce this too. How do you pronounce the first one? Yes, it's going to be be, be, with that long A sound. Bear. And the next one is going to be bear. Bear. Remember, these are A-class vowels, meaning they make A sound. You have sere and you have sego. Bear and bear. That's how you pronounce this too. Let's move on. The next one we have E-class vowel. Those that are making E sound. We have hirek yod and we have hirek. We have the long one and the short one. Hirek yod is going to be pronounced with the consonant. The bet is going to be pronounced as B, B. And with the shorter one, it's going to be pronounced as B, B. So B and B. And throughout, we're going to be using the letter bet to learn how to pronounce these vowels. So go through as I'm pronouncing, learn how to pronounce them and learn how to differentiate them. B and B. Hirek yod and hirek. Let's move on. We move on to the O-class vowels, and there are three there. We have the holem, we have the holem wow, and we have the kametz atuf. Holem, holem wow, kametz atuf. How do you pronounce the holem? And notice the holem is written on top. It's a dot that you write on top of the bet. The dot that you write on top of the bet. So how do you pronounce the holem? The holem is going to be pronounced as bo, bo. It's that O sound, that long O sound, a dot written on top of the bet, the long O sound. And how do you pronounce the holem wow? Same. Both of them are long vowels. So the holem wow is going to be pronounced as bo, bo. And then we come to the kametz atuf. Kametz atuf also has the O sound. Remember, it's under the O-class vowels. Also has the O sound, so it's going to be pronounced as bo, bo, bo. But remember, for now I said, when you see it, pronounce it as kametz with A sound. So this is how you pronounce the O-class vowels. Bo, bo, bo. Bo, bo, bo. Holem, holem wow, kametz atuf. Let's move on. We come to the O-class vowels. O-class vowels, we have two, the long one and the short one. The long one we have shurek, which is the long O sound. So when you're pronouncing shurek, with the bet is going to be boo, boo, boo. Remember, you start by pronouncing the bet, then you come to the vowel. You start by pronouncing the consonant, then you come to the vowel. So, boo. And then we come to the short one, the kibbutz. Those three slanted dots, the three slanted dots under the letter, under the bet, are called kibbutz. They are making O sound. How you pronounce it? Boo, boo. This one is pronounced as boo. This one is going to be pronounced as boo, boo. Shurek and kibbutz. And when we come to the compound vowels, there are three, as I said. We have the hatef kametz, hatef sego, hatef patach. Hatef kametz, hatef sego, hatef patach. How are they pronounced? Remember, the hatef kametz is pronounced with the O sound, the short O sound. And remember, the hatef kametz is found on the O-class vowels. So it's going to be having that short vowel, the short O. So this is going to be bo, bo. And hatef sego is going to be pronounced with a short E sound, be, be. And hatef patach is going to be pronounced with a short A sound, ba, ba. And that's how you pronounce the three compound vowels. Hatef kametz, hatef sego, and hatef patach. These are the vowels that you find, the vowels that Hebrew uses. You need to know their names, how to pronounce them, and how to write them. Now let's read some Hebrew words. Let's take our pronunciation a step further and begin to read some Hebrew words. We're just using bet to read the vowels, but now I want to read Hebrew words. So let's go through together. Here's the first one. How are you going to pronounce that word? Here's a pattern that we're going to be using to help us to pronounce the words. Firstly, we're going to be recognizing the letters that we have, and then the vowels that we have, and trying to see how we pronounce the letters with the vowels, or the consonants with the vowels. So to pronounce this, let's first identify what we have. What we have the consonant aleph, we have kametz, the vowel kametz under, and we have the bet. Remember, Hebrew is read from right to left. So the first consonant is aleph, and then we have kametz, then we have another consonant, bet. So we have aleph, kametz, bet. How do you pronounce this word? Remember, aleph is silent. So the only sound you're going to get is the sound that is coming from the consonant. Then you have A plus B. We're supposed to pronounce this as ab, ab. But look at the bet. The bet has no dagesh. It has no dot. And the bet is among the 6 Begat Kefat letters. And since it has no dot, we're not going to pronounce it as B sound. We're going to use the V sound. So this word is going to be pronounced as av, av. Instead of saying ab, we'll have av, av. Remember, the aleph is silent, so we'll have av. The dagesh is very important. When it's absent, the sound changes. When it's present, the sound changes. And mostly when it's present, the sound is normal, as you would expect. When it's absent, the sound is different. And specifically talking about the Begat Kefat letters, here are those that you need to pay attention to. Pay attention to these ones. You have the bet, you have the tau, you have the kaf, you have the pe. These ones are going to change their sound when they have a dagesh or when they don't have a dagesh. So revisit chapter 1 and see how the dagesh affects pronunciation on the Begat Kefat letters. Just go through chapter 1 and get conversant with the Begat Kefat in line with the dagesh. Let's move on. Next we have this word here. How do you read this word? Can you try it out? How do you read this word? Now to read it again, we're going to identify the letters that we have. This first one is dalet. Then we have kametz under. And what letter is this one? This letter is mem. And you're saying, this is not how you write mem. Remember, mem has 2 forms. You have the normal form and the final form, the Sofit form. And this one right here is the Sofit form, the final form. The mem that is used here is a mem that you find at the end of the word. So you need to know those Sofit forms, you need to know those final forms, because they're going to be used. You're going to see them at the end of the words. So this word here has dalet, kametz, and mem. Dalet, kametz, and mem. Remember, right to left, right to left. So the reading is going to be D sound, A sound from the kametz, and M sound from the mem. That will create the sound dam, dam. To read Hebrew, you need to know the Sofit letters, you need to know the vowels, and you need to know how to read them. Let's move on. How to pronounce this one? Alright. Now, the first letter there, what letter is this one? Let's try to identify the letters that we have. We have the shin. This is not sin, it's shin. And sin and shin are 2 very identical letters. They are lookalikes. They're easy to confuse, shin and sin. But here's the trick. Remember, when you're looking at chapter 1, I said, sin is not right, it's left. Meaning the letter sin has its dot on the left, not the right. Sin is not right, it's left. So you have shin, you have tsere, and you have nun. This letter here is nun. Okay, this letter here is nun. Now, you're saying, looks like a kaf, the final kaf, but the final kaf has a long top line. It has a long top line. This one that has just a small top line is nun, nun, the final nun. So what you have is shin, which represents SH, and then you have sere, which is e, sound is going to be e, then you have nun, which is n. So SH, E, and N. How do you pronounce that? Shen, shen. And that's how you pronounce this word, shen. Again, you need to know the final letters, the final forms, the Sofit letters. They are very easy to confuse, So you need to know them. You need to know how to pronounce them, how to recognize them, and how to write them. This one here is going to be read as shen, shen. How do you pronounce this other word? You have yod, kametz, dalet. Yod, kametz, dalet. How do you pronounce it? This one is going to be pronounced as yad, yad, yad. Remember, yod represents Y. So you have Y-A-D, Y-A-D, yad. Yod is Y, kametz is A, dalet is D, yad. How do you pronounce this one? Let's identify the letters that we have. You have yod, which is Y, and then we have the vowel, holem wow, the O sound. You have yod, which is Y, and then we have holem wow, which is O, and then we have, what letter is this one? Mem, the final mem, the final mem. It looks like a samek, but it's not a samek. Samek has no box, has no corners under there when you're writing it. So this is mem. So how do you pronounce this word? You have Y-O-M, Y-O-M. Y, which is yod, O, which is holem wow, and you have mem. That makes it yom, yom. And this is the Hebrew word for day. When you want to say day, you say yom, day, yom. Let's move on. How do you pronounce this word? Letters that we have aleph, holem wow, and resh. Aleph, holem wow, and resh. Remember, the wow can be used with holem on top, and when you see the holem on top, the wow is used as a vowel and not a consonant. So this one here is going to be a vowel. It's not going to stand alone as a consonant, wow. It's going to be used as a vowel, holem wow. And that is going to make the O sound. So you have the aleph, holem wow, resh. Aleph, holem wow, resh. Remember, the aleph is silent, so you're going to just take the vowel sound. So you have the O plus the ara. Resh is ara. So you have O plus ara, making the sound or, or. Let's move on. You can try it out. How do you pronounce this word here? Now you need to pay attention here. We have mem, kametz, wow, sego, and tau. We have mem, kametz, wow, sego, and tau. Mem represents M. You have kametz under there. Wow represents W. You have sego under there, which is, so sego is a sound. So sego is a sound. And then you have tau, which is T. Now, let me just explain the function of wow here. Remember, wow is used in two ways, as a consonant and as a vowel. And here's the trick. The only time when wow is used as a vowel is when it's having the holem on top or the dot inside it. When it's having the holem on top, it's going to create the O sound. It's going to be holem wow. When it's having the dash inside it, the dot inside it, it's going to be the shrek, going to be the O sound. Any other time is going to be a consonant. It's going to be a consonant. So in this case, you have the mem, kametz, wow, sego, and tau. How do you pronounce this? You have the M, A, kametz is A, wow, which is W, E, which is sego, and then you have the T, the tau. How do you pronounce that word? Mawet. Mawet. That's how you pronounce that word. Mawet. Let's look at the next word. How do you pronounce this word here? Again, let's try to recognize what we have. We have the ayin. This letter here, the first letter is ayin. If you remember the alphabet, the first letter is ayin. Now, somebody almost said tzade. This is not tzade. This is ayin. Tzade has a longer tail, and ayin has this short tail. So there's a difference between ayin and tzade. Those are lookalikes. So the letters that we have here, we have ayin. Under there, you have patach, and then you have Yod. Under there, you have Hirek, and this final form is called Nun. This is the final form for Nun. Again, you have Ayin, Patach, Yod, Hirek, and Nun. So how do you pronounce this word? Remember, Ayin is a silent letter. In Hebrew, there are two silent letters on the alphabet. You have Aleph and you have Ayin. Aleph and Ayin. And these two are silent, meaning that they take their sound from the vowel that is underneath it or beside it or on top of it. So, in this case, you have that vowel, Patach. Patach is a A class vowel, meaning it makes A sound. So, how do you read this? So, you have Ayin, Ayin, Ayin. Let's move on. Let's look at this word and how to pronounce it. Okay, first of all, let's identify the letters that we have. We have Aleph, and then we have the compound vowel. This compound vowel, remember the name? It's Hatef. Yes, Hatef Sego. Hatef Sego. That's the compound vowel. So you have Aleph, Hatef Sego. You have Lamed. On top of Lamed, you have the Holem. So that Holem is attached to the Lamed. And then you have the Hey. Hey. And then you have the Hirek Yod. This is how you write Hirek Yod. This vowel is called Hirek Yod because you have Hirek and the Yod on the side. Hirek Yod makes the E sound. And finally, we have the Sofit form for Mem, the final form for Mem. So how do you pronounce this word? Look at the vowels. You have the Hatef Sego, E sound. You have the Holem, O sound. You have the Hirek Yod, E sound. So you have A, O, E. A, O, E. Now the consonant on top is silent. The Aleph is silent. Then you have Lamed, which is L. Then you have He, which is H. Then you have Mem. So how do you pronounce this? You have Elohim. 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 Notice in Hebrew when you're pronouncing, this is very important to knowing how to pronounce Hebrew. Notice that you always put the tonation, the emphasis when you're pronouncing is put on the last part. This is going to be pronounced as Elohim. That him, that's where you put the emphasis, on the last part, Elohim. So you're pronouncing it as Elohim. That's how you pronounce this word. Let's move on. How do you pronounce this word? How do you pronounce this word? Let's identify the letters. The first letter is, what letter is that one? Tzade. That's Sade. If you look at it, it looks very similar to Ayin, but it's not Ayin. They're similar, but they're written differently. That's not Ayin. That's Sade. So you have Sade, Patach, Dalet, plus Hirek Yod, then you have Kof. That last letter there is Kof. So how do you pronounce this one? So you have TS for Tzade. Tzade makes a TS sound. Then you have A sound, Patach. You have D, which is Dalet. You have E sound, which is Hirek Yod. And then you have Q sound. So you have Sadik. Sadik. Remember, the emphasis or the tonation is placed on the last part of the word. Sadik. Sadik. That's how you read this word here. Sadik. It's not Sadik, S-A, it's T-S-A. Sadik. That's how you read this word. That dot you're seeing in Dalet, that's simply the Dagesh. The Dagesh. Remember, Begat Kefat letters receive the Dagesh. But remember, as I said it, the Dagesh in a Dalet makes no change in how you pronounce it. The ones that change, the Begat Kefat letters that change, are the Bet, the Kaf, the Tau, and the Pe. Those four consonants are the ones to look out for when they have a Dagesh or when they don't have a Dagesh. So Dalet is not affected. Let's move on. How do you pronounce this word? You have Bet, Chametz, Resh, Chametz, and Aleph. Aleph is silent, so you have the Bet, which is B, A, Ara, A, then Aleph, which is silent. So again, we have the B, A, Ara, A, Aleph, which is silent. How do you pronounce this? It's pronounced as bara. Again, emphasis is on the, tonation is on the last syllable, the last part of the word. Bara, bara, bara. Now, the dot in the bet is the one that is making us pronounce the bet as B instead of the V. It was supposed to be vara, but because of that dagesh, it's telling us to pronounce the bet with a B sound. So it's going to be bara, bara. Let's move on. How do you pronounce this word here? Aleph, kametz, resh, sego, tzade. How do you pronounce this word here? You have kametz, which is A sound, ara, which is resh, sego, which is A sound, and then you have TS from sade. Remember, this is the final form for sade. This is the final form for sade. You need to know the final forms. This one you're looking at here is a final form for sade, TS. So you have arets, arets, arets. That's how you pronounce this word here. Arets, arets. Let's move on. How do you pronounce this word here? We have mem, sego, lamed, sego, and kaf. Mem, sego, lamed, sego, and kaf. Now you're saying, what about the last two dots that are in kaf? Now those two dots, let me just put it out. We're going to look at this later on. But those two dots are shua. Those two dots are shua. Now shua, remember it's silent sometimes, it's vocal sometimes. When they're found at the end of the word, the shua or the two dots are silent. They're not to be pronounced. So how do you pronounce this one? You have mem, a sound, lamed, a sound, and kaf. How do you pronounce it? You have M, E, L, E plus K. So how do you pronounce that? Now, before I answer that question, you need to know something. When you're looking at a word that has two segos, a word that is starting with two segos, you have sego and sego. When you're looking at a word that has two segos, sego and sego, this kind of a word is called a segolet noun. It's a segolet. Now, what's a segolet? A segolet is simply a word that is starting with two segos in a row. The word is starting with sego followed by sego. The consonants that are starting are having two vowels, and those two vowels are sego. Sego and sego. Those are called segolet nouns. Now, segolet nouns have a special behavior, a special feature. What's the feature? When the word is having sego and sego, you do not put emphasis on the last syllable, on the last part of the word. You put the emphasis on the first part at the beginning of the word. How do you pronounce a word that is a segolet? You pronounce it by putting emphasis on the first part of the word, not the last part of the word. And this rule only applies to segolet nouns, nouns that are starting with sego and sego, sego and sego. So how do you pronounce this? You pronounce it as melek, melek, melek. Instead of melek, melek, melek. No, you pronounce it as melek, melek, because it's a segolet. This only applies to nouns that are having sego and sego in a row. They are starting with sego followed by sego. How do you pronounce it? Melek, melek. That's how you pronounce this word. Next word is the same. It's a segolet. Why? Starting with sego followed by sego. How do you pronounce it? You have nun, sego, pe, sego, and what letter is that? Shin. It's not sin, it's shin. So you have nun, sego, pe, sego, shin. How do you pronounce this? Nefesh, nefesh. Like the previous one, it was melek. This one is going to be nefesh, nefesh, nefesh. That's how you pronounce this word, nefesh, nefesh. Notice that the pe is a begat kefat letter. And begat kefat letters are supposed to have a dagesh, a dot, for them to maintain their normal sound. Pe is supposed to be pronounced as P sound, P sound. But when it's not having the dagesh, it's going to be pronounced as F sound. F sound. Know how to tell segolate nouns. They'll always be very simple. They'll always be starting with sego and sego. Just know that they are segolate nouns. Why is that important? It's going to affect how you pronounce the word. Nefesh instead of nefesh. It's going to be nefesh. Let's move on. How do you pronounce this word here? Let's identify the letters. You have, what letter is the first one there? It's a sin and not a shin. It's a sin and not a shin. You're almost saying shin is not a shin, it's a sin. That letter there is a sin and not a shin. So you have sin, kametz, and the next letter there is tet. Tet plus kametz plus a final noon, final form for noon. How do you pronounce this? Remember, sin is simply S, kametz is A sound, A, tet is T, kametz is A, noon is N. So what you have is S-A-T-A-N. S-A-T-A-N. Remember, we start with the consonant, then the vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant. S-A-T-A-N. How do you pronounce that? Try to pronounce it. It's Satan. 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 And this is a word simply for Satan. Satan. It's Satan. Okay, this is a word that you find, the Hebrew word that you find used in Job. Okay, Job 1. When Job is being tried, that's the word that is being used there when the Bible introduces the devil, Satan. The word is Satan. Remember, you place the emphasis on the last part of the word, unless the word is beginning with sego and sego, a segolate noun. But this one here, you place emphasis on the last part of the word. So it's Satan, not Satan, it's Satan. That's how you pronounce the word. How do you pronounce this one here? You have Aleph, Hirek, Shin, Kametz, He. Aleph, Hirek, Shin, Kametz, He. How do you pronounce this one? Hirek makes E sound, Aleph is silent, Shin is SH sound, then Kametz is A sound, He is simply H. So how do you pronounce this? You pronounce it as Isha, Isha, Isha. Let's move on to the next word. How do you pronounce this word here? Now, on this word, I need to explain. Okay, why do I need to explain? Because the normal reading of this word was supposed to be, you have that shua under the yod, you have a yod, shua, he, wow, kametz, he. So the normal reading was going to be, or supposed to be, yewa, 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 because the shua is having that short e sound. So the normal reading was going to be yewa, yewa. But that is not the reading. Why? Let me explain. When the Masoretes added vowel points, they wanted readers to see this word here, but pronounce it as Adonai. And this they did so that they have reverence for the word Yahweh. They didn't want to pronounce Yahweh, they wanted to pronounce, in place of Yahweh, Adonai. So here's what they did. They took the vowels from Adonai, the vowels being the compound vowel, Hatef Patach, and then you have Holem and Kametz Hei, took them and placed them under the word Yahweh, placed them on Yod Hei, Wow Hei, to visually remind the reader that when you're approaching this word here, the Yod Hei, Wow Hei, you should pronounce this as Adonai and not as Yahweh, so that readers should read Adonai when they are looking at Yahweh. Now what happens when you put those vowels on the consonants, Yod Hei, Wow Hei? Here's what happens. If you put Adonai's vowels under Yahweh or under Yod Hei, Wow Hei, you would get something like this. You're going to get Yehovah, or as some call it, Yehovah. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get that Yehovah, as some pronounce it as Yehovah. And that's actually where the letter Jehovah comes from Adonai's vowels. But Hebrew doesn't allow all those vowels to stay that way. And so the holem drops and other vowels change. And so in the end, we have this form that is on the screen. Yewa. Now here's where it gets interesting. You thought the pronunciation was going to be Yewa, but the final pronunciation is going to be Yahweh. This word here is not to be read as Yewa. The actual pronunciation of this word is Yahweh. You must be shocked. Let me save you the headache. This one is just an exception. You just have to know it and know this, that when you're looking at this word, it's not to be read as or pronounced as Yewa. The reading of this word is to be Yahweh. When you're looking at this word, you have to pronounce it as Yahweh, not Yehovah, but Yahweh, not Yewa, but Yahweh. This is an exception in biblical Hebrew. And this is the word that is translated as Lord in English. In the English Bibles, whenever you see Lord, you are looking at this word in the Hebrew. And Lord being L-O-R-D, capital letters. Now, there are some that read this word as Yehovah, but that reading is not supported in biblical Hebrew. The reading that is supported by most scholars is Yahweh, Yahweh. And finally, let's look at the vocabulary words that you find in chapter 2. Here's a rule when you're learning Hebrew. At the end of each chapter, there will be some Hebrew words you must learn and know. You must learn and know these words at the end of each chapter because this allows you to know and start using Hebrew. For example, this makes you know how to say house in Hebrew, how to say God in Hebrew, how to say man, how to say woman, how to say earth in Hebrew. So these are the vocabulary words that you find in the chapters, and so you must know them and know them by heart. And here's why you need to know these words. These words are the ones that we'll be using in learning. And second, these are the words that you'll find us using when translating phrases or sentences. And thirdly, these are some of the words that you find in the quiz. And know this, at the end of each chapter, there will always be a quiz to test your learning, test your knowledge. And so some of the words that you'll find in the exam are some of the words that you'll meet at the end of each chapter. And so you must pay attention to these words, find a piece of paper, write these words, and know them by heart. Now, each chapter will have some 10 to 20 Hebrew words that you need to know. You cannot know Hebrew minus knowing the vocabulary. And so take vocabulary very, very seriously. This is to keep you busy and grounded in the Hebrew. So write them somewhere on the cards. As you are busy working, check on them, know them by heart. But here's a good part. Some of the words are very familiar to preachers, especially to preachers. You'll be able to tell them. So that will save you some time in learning them. So let's look at them. So here's a guide as you'll be looking at the words. On the first part, you have Hebrew words. On the second part, you have transliteration of the Hebrew words to allow you to pronounce them. This will guide you on how the Hebrew word is pronounced. And on the other side, you have the translation, what the Hebrew word means in the English. So you need to know the Hebrew word and you need to know what it means in the English. When you're looking at the Hebrew word, you need to know what it means in the English. So let's look at the words. The first one we have Av. Av. Notice it's not Ab. It's not Ab. It's Av. Why? Because the bet at the end has no dagesh. Because that is a begat kefat letter. The bet is a begat kefat letter. And when it's lacking the dagesh, when it's lacking the dot inside, you pronounce it with a V sound and not a B sound. So that's going to be Av and not Ab. And Av means father. Av means father. This is where the word Abba comes from. Av means father. Our next word is Adam. Adam. And Adam means man. It means man. Now, some words have 2 or 3 meanings. They can be used to mean man. In this case, Adam can mean man or it can mean Adam. It can mean man or it can mean Adam. Our next word is Ach. Ach. It's not Ak, it's Ach. That is a chet. So the sound has to tell. That's Ach and not Ak. And Ach means brother. It means brother. Next word is ish. Ish. Ish means man. In other places it means husband. Ish means man. Now, most of the times you focus on the first meaning, the first translation, man in this case, but know that ish can mean husband. At times when you're looking at it, depending on the context, it can mean husband. But ish means man. Next word is isha. Isha. Isha means woman, or it can mean wife. Woman or wife. Now notice, on top you have ish, next you have isha. Ish, isha. Ish, man, isha, woman. In fact, this is a reading that you find when Adam says, and this one will be called Isha because she was taken out of Ish. And she shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Okay, you have Ish, Isha. Ish means man, Isha means woman. Let's move on. Our next word is Eretz. Eretz. Eretz means earth. It means land, it means earth. And notice at the end you have sometimes F in brackets or M. This simply tells you that this word you're looking at is a feminine word or a masculine word. This is simply about gender. For now, that is not so important. What is important is to know the Hebrew word and what it means in the English. Eretz means earth or land. Eretz means earth or land. Remember, a word that is starting with two segors is called a segolet. And a segolet is accented. It's emphasized on the first part of the word. You're not going to pronounce it as eretz, eretz, to emphasize the last part, as normal Hebrew words are supposed to be emphasized or pronounced. You're going to read it as eretz, eretz, to emphasize the first part of the word. Why? Because it's a segolet noun. So, eretz, eretz, it means earth or land. Next word you have davar, davar. Again, you have davar. It's not dabar, it's davar. Why? Because that bet is not a B sound, but a V sound. It's not having the dagesh. So you have davar. And davar means word. It means word. Other times it means matter or thing. But mostly it means word. Next word you have yam. Yam. Now, if you don't know the final forms of letters, you're not going to tell that that is a mem. You need to know the final forms. Very important to pronouncing Hebrew. You need to know the final forms of letters. There are 5 letters that have final forms. Letters like Sade, like Mem, like Nun, like Kaf. Those letters are final forms. You need to know them. You need to know them by heart and be able to tell when you're looking at those letters. So this one here is Yam. Yam. And Yam means sea. Sea. Next word you have Melek. Melek. Again, this is a segolet noun. It's not Melek, it's Melek. Melek. Notice on Kaf, on the final Kaf, the final letter, you have those 2 dots. Those dots are not affecting the pronunciation. When you're looking at the final Kaf, it will mostly have those 2 dots. They are not affecting pronunciation. So how you read this is Melek. It's a segolet noun. And Melek means king. It means king. Next word we come to verbs. And on the verbs, the first one we have achau. Achau. Notice I'm pronouncing it as achau. Achau. Not akau. Okay, there's a difference. It's not akau, it's achau. Achau. As if you're pronouncing chet, but it's a kaf. Why? Because notice, kaf is a begad kefat letter. And in this case, it's not having the dot, the dagesh. And when it's not having the dot, the pronunciation changes. It's going to get the softer sound, almost like a chet. So it's not going to be K sound. It's going to be like chet. So it's achau. Achau. Now, most of the times when you're pronouncing it in a sentence, the difference is almost minimal. The difference is almost not heard. But the pronunciation is achau, achau. And achau means he ate, he ate. Next word is amar, amar. And that verb means he said. Amar, he said. Next word you have haya, haya. Haya means he was or he became. He was or he became. Next verb we have halak, halak. Halak means he went or he walked. He walked. He went or he walked. Halak. Next word is shama, shama. Shama means he heard. He heard or he listened. Next word is shamar, shamar. On top you have shama, under you have shamar. There's that resh at the end, and that makes a difference. Shama, shamar. And shamar means he kept, he watched, or he guarded. Most of the times it's going to be he kept or he guarded. Next group of words we have adjectives. And almost always you're going to have nouns, verbs, adjectives, prepositions, this kind of structure. So now we're looking at the adjectives. On the adjectives we have the first one, echad, echad. That's a chet. That letter on the middle there is a chet. So it's echad. And that word means one. It means one. It's an adjective. It means one. Next you have achat, achat. That word means one. It means one also. Notice the top one, echad, mostly is used when you're referring to masculine things. For example, one man. And the other one, achat, is used when you're referring to feminine things. For example, one woman. So you have those differences. Under there we have kadosh, kadosh. Kadosh means holy. It means holy. Next we have prepositions, and there are two there. The first one is achar, achar. And that preposition means after. It means after or behind. Next we have bein, bein. Bein means between. Bein means between. So these are the words that you find in chapter 2. You must know them by heart. You must know them by heart. You're going to find them in the exam. So please take time to know them, not only for the sake of the exam, but for the sake of you knowing how to pronounce them, how to translate them. When you're reading Hebrew, you must know what they mean. And for the next chapters to be easy, you must know these words, because these are the ones that you'll be translating. These are the ones that you'll be able to find. So shalom, it means greetings or it means bye. Until next time, practice, practice, practice.